Dear brother, dear sister, have you ever felt that loneliness and discouragement are crushing your soul as if you have no strength left to move forward? Perhaps you look around and feel that no one understands the depth of your pain, that each day seems heavier than the one before. Today, I want to make you a promise. By the end of this video, you will receive a word of hope that can rekindle the flame of life within you, showing that God still has a purpose for your story. Stay with me until the end, because this message was prepared with love to touch your heart. There are moments in our spiritual journey when God speaks softly to our spirit, bringing truths that have the power to completely transform our perspective. I feel deep in my soul that these words can be that divine touch to ease the burden you carry. Perhaps you have asked yourself countless times why life seems so unfair, why even when trying so hard, peace seems to slip through your fingers. Today, with a heart overflowing with compassion for you, I want to address something that may be, without you realizing it, corroding your faith and joy: murmuring. Murmuring is not just releasing words of discontent about your circumstances. It's like allowing a small drop of poison to fall daily into the well of your soul. Gradually, this drop accumulates, turning into a lake of bitterness that contaminates your thoughts, your emotions, and even your relationship with God. When we murmur, we open a door to discouragement, doubt, and the feeling that we are alone in this struggle. But I want you to know that there is a path to liberation, a way to transform this cycle of pain into a cycle of renewal. I want to begin by sharing the story of Hannah, a woman who experienced profound suffering, as we read in the book of 1 Samuel. Hannah faced the pain of infertility in a culture where having children was seen as the greatest blessing for a woman. Additionally, she was constantly provoked by Peninnah, who mocked her condition. Imagine how easy it would have been for Hannah to surrender to murmuring, to question God about why her life was so marked by lack, while others around her seemed to have everything. However, Hannah chose a different path. Instead of letting words of complaint come out of her mouth, she went to the temple and poured out her soul before the Lord. Her tears were not of revolt, but of honest and broken crying out. She did not accuse God. She sought Him with everything she had. And what was the result of this choice? God heard Hannah's cry. She not only gave birth to Samuel, one of Israel's greatest prophets, but also became the mother of other children. Her story, which began with pain and humiliation, was transformed into a testimony of hope that echoes through the centuries. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect with me. What pain or emptiness in your life have you been carrying in silence? What sadness or loneliness could you, at this moment, transform into a sincere cry to God? Instead of letting bitterness take over your heart, crying out instead of complaining, a choice that changes everything. There is a subtle yet profoundly transformative difference between two attitudes that shape our spiritual destiny. These attitudes are represented by two similar-sounding words, with opposite effects: crying out and complaining. When we complain, it's as if we're building a wall of dark clouds around us, blocking the light of hope. Each word of discontent takes us a little further from God's presence, leaving us more isolated, more trapped in our own pain. On the other hand, when we cry out, we open a window in the midst of darkness, allowing divine light to illuminate even the darkest corners of our soul. I want you to know the story of Ruth, a young woman who faced devastating losses, as we read in the book that bears her name. Ruth lost her husband, her financial security, and her connection to her homeland. She found herself in a position of complete vulnerability, a foreign widow, with no guarantee of a better future. If anyone had reasons to give in to murmuring, it was her. Imagine the scene: a young woman without resources following her mother-in-law Naomi to an unknown land. not knowing whether she would be accepted or rejected. Everything seemed to conspire for bitterness to take over her heart. But Ruth made a choice that changed her trajectory. Instead of complaining about her fate, she declared with faith and determination, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." These words were not just an expression of loyalty to Naomi. They were a cry of trust in God, even in the midst of uncertainty. Ruth didn't know what the future held, but she decided to trust, and God honored that faith. He guided her to the field of Boaz, a man who would become her redeemer, bringing her back to dignity. More than that, Ruth became part of David's lineage and, consequently, of Jesus Christ himself. From a hopeless foreigner, she was transformed into a pillar in the story of redemption. I want you to think for a moment. What would you say to God today if you could make a declaration of faith like Ruth's? Even feeling alone, even with a heavy heart. What step of trust can you take now, believing that God has a plan for your life? Perhaps you cannot see the path ahead, but like Ruth, you can choose to trust that God is working behind the scenes. Furthermore, I want to bring to your mind another biblical figure who teaches us about the power of crying out. David. Before becoming king, David went through years of persecution, living as a fugitive, hiding in caves, away from his family and any comfort. In Psalm 142, he describes his anguish, saying, "I cry aloud to the Lord. I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy." David did not hide his pain. He expressed it to God. He did not murmur against the Lord for his situation. Instead, he transformed his affliction into prayer. And God sustained him, protected him, and, in due time, elevated him to the throne of Israel. These examples show us something powerful. Crying out doesn't mean ignoring the pain or pretending that everything is fine. Crying out is acknowledging the reality of your struggle, but deciding to take it to the only one who can truly help. It's an act of faith that says, "Lord, I don't understand why, but I trust you to guide me through this." And when we do this, something begins to change within us. It's as if a weight begins to lift from our shoulders, as if darkness begins to give way to a soft but growing light. In our daily lives, we are like architects of our own soul. Every word we speak, every thought we nurture, is a brick we place in the construction of our spiritual future. What kind of structure are you building? A castle of discouragement, made of complaints and murmurs, or a sanctuary of hope, built with gratitude and trust? I know your situation might be incredibly difficult. Perhaps you've lost someone you loved. Perhaps doors seem to all be closed. Perhaps loneliness is your constant companion. I'm not suggesting that you deny these feelings or pretend they don't exist. I'm inviting you to channel them in a way that brings healing, not more pain. I want to propose a gentle challenge that may change your perspective. For just one day, pay attention to the words that come out of your mouth and the thoughts that dominate your mind. Each time you feel murmuring arise, whether about a bill you cannot pay, a relationship that fell apart, or a dream that seems impossible, transform it into a prayer. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" try saying, "Lord, help me understand what I can learn from this." Instead of thinking, "I can't take it anymore," whisper, "Father, give me strength to cross this valley." It's not about ignoring reality, but deciding to see it through the lens of faith. As you practice this, something almost miraculous begins to happen. It's as if your soul begins to breathe lighter air, as if a dense fog that obscured your vision begins to dissipate, revealing a horizon that was always there, just waiting to be discovered. You begin to notice that even amid pain, there is beauty in small things. A sunrise, a kind word from a friend, a moment of silence where you feel God's presence. And little by little, The sadness that seemed suffocating begins to lose its strength. Finding peace. Even in the midst of storms, I want you to meditate with me on a passage of scripture that always brings a profound impact to my heart. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4, we read about a time when Jesus and his disciples were in a boat on the Sea of Galilee when a violent storm arose. The waves beat against the boat to the point that the disciples, many of whom were experienced fishermen, feared for their lives. And in the midst of all that chaos, where was Jesus? He was in the stern of the boat, sleeping peacefully on a cushion. This image presents such a powerful contrast. On one side, the fury of the external storm. On the other, the absolute serenity of Jesus. What allowed him to rest amid such turbulence? It wasn't indifference to the dangers around him, nor disconnection from reality. It was an unshakable trust in God's power and care, a certainty that no storm could frustrate the Father's plans. And that same peace, which goes beyond human understanding, is available to you today. It's not a peace that depends on the absence of problems, but a peace that remains firm even when everything around you seems to be falling apart. I want to bring to your memory another story that illustrates this supernatural peace. That of Daniel, as we read in the book that bears his name. Daniel was unjustly accused and thrown into a den of hungry lions, a certain death sentence in human eyes. Meanwhile, King Darius, who had been manipulated into ordering this punishment, spent the night sleepless, tormented by concern for Daniel. But the Bible reveals something extraordinary to us. While the king in the palace was restless, Daniel in the den was at peace. He rested among the beasts, protected by an angel sent by God. The next day, when the king rushed to see what had happened, he found Daniel unharmed, testifying that his God had delivered him. Isn't it amazing to think about this? Daniel's situation was, objectively, much more dangerous than the king's. Yet his peace was incomparably greater. Why? Because Daniel had learned the secret of resting in God's sovereignty, regardless of circumstances. He didn't let fear or murmuring take over his heart. He trusted that God was in control, even in that dark den. Now, I want you to reflect on your own life. How many nights have you spent awake, with your mind spinning in an endless cycle of worries? How many precious hours have been consumed imagining scenarios of failure or loss that may never materialize? Worry is like carrying a backpack full of stones while crossing a desert. It only increases our fatigue without taking us faster to our destination. What if, instead of carrying this burden, you decided to place it at the feet of the Lord? Let me share a real-life story that deeply touched my heart. I knew a woman named Clara who faced a series of tragedies in a short period. She lost the job that supported her family. Her marriage collapsed after years of struggle, and her mother's health, her greatest confidant, began to rapidly deteriorate. Clara told me that for months she felt as if she were living in an endless tunnel where she couldn't see any light. Loneliness consumed her, and she often found herself complaining about life, asking God why everything seemed so cruel. But one day, during a conversation with an old friend from church, something changed. This friend reminded her that God had not promised a life without pain, but he had promised to be present in each one of them. He suggested that, instead of focusing on what was wrong, she should try to write down each night 3 things she could be grateful for, no matter how small. At first, Clara found this almost impossible. How to find gratitude amid so much suffering? But she started with simple things: a neighbor's smile, the sound of rain on the window, the fact that she had a roof over her head. Little by little, something began to change within her. Writing these small blessings helped her realize that even in the midst of the storm, there were signs of God's care. And over time, she began to pray more, to cry out instead of complain. It wasn't an instant transformation, but it was a process that brought back the hope she thought she had lost forever. This story reminds me that even in the most difficult situations, we can find reasons to praise. Perhaps you cannot change your circumstances today, but you can change how you face them. Perhaps loneliness is still present, but you can begin to feel God's company in small moments of quietness. Perhaps sadness still tightens your chest, but you can discover that there is strength in surrendering that pain into the hands of the one who understands everything. The fulfilled promise. A new beginning for you. We have reached the moment I promised at the beginning of this video. Listen to these words with all your heart, my dear brother, my dear sister. You are not alone in the boat of your life. Even if loneliness seems suffocating, even if sadness has stolen your joy, the Master of the Seas is by your side. He sees every tear you've shed in secret, knows every wound that no one else sees, and he hasn't given up on you. God is whispering to your heart right now, I am with you. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. Your storms don't have the final word about who you are or what your life can become. Think of the olive tree, a tree that grows stronger when facing intense winds. Its roots go deeper into the soil, its trunk becomes more resistant, and it's from these trees tested by adversities that the most precious oil comes. In the same way, the struggles you face today are shaping you for a greater purpose. God is using each pain, each moment of loneliness, to create in you a strength that you may not yet be able to see, but that one day will be a testimony to others who are also suffering. I want you to know that there is a new beginning waiting for you. No matter how broken you feel, God is a specialist in restoring what has been destroyed. He takes the pieces of your story and transforms them into something beautiful, like an artisan who creates a mosaic from fragments. He promises in Isaiah 61 verse 3 to give a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. That is the exchange he offers you today. Trade your pain for his peace, your murmuring for his praise, your loneliness for his presence. Allow me to invite you to make a transformative decision at this moment. Surrender control of your life into God's hands. Set aside the weight of complaint and embrace the freedom of crying out to him with confidence. Say in your heart, or even aloud, Lord, I don't understand everything I'm going through, but I trust that you have a plan. Take my pain, my loneliness, and make something new in me. By doing so, you open space for God's Spirit to begin operating a deep healing in your soul. My heart is filled with gratitude for you having stayed with me until here, being part of this Walking with God family. I want to ask you to share this video with someone who might also need to hear this message of hope. Perhaps a friend, a family member, or even a co-worker is facing the same loneliness or discouragement as you, and these words can be a balm to them. Additionally, leave your testimony or prayer request in the comments below. Our community is here to intercede for you, to carry your burdens in prayer, and to celebrate your victories. If this message touched your heart and brought a breath of renewal, join us by subscribing to the Walking with God channel. Let's continue together on this journey of faith, discovering day by day how God transforms our storms into testimonies of his goodness. May the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. Always remember, the storms of life are temporary, but God's love and purpose for you are eternal. You are not just a survivor, you are more than a conqueror in his power. Until our next conversation, walk with God, my friend.